Hello and welcome back to Frontington and Backwards Railway, where today I'm making points move by magic. Ooh. When I started building this layout, I had no idea what I was doing, literally making stuff up as I went along. With hindsight, one of the many things I'd have done differently is to drill holes underneath the points so that I could one day add point motors. I didn't do that, so today I'm going to improvise. Let me just move this bridge out of the way. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is take a sharp knife and cut a slit in the baseboard next to my point. Hang on, let me just explain that a moment. The topmost layer of my baseboard is actually extruded polystyrene, which is why I can just cut into it like this. Obviously, if you're using the usual tried and tested approach of using wood, you're going to have to find a different solution. Right, on with the show. This slit is going to act as a trench, inside which I'm going to install a metal rod. This next step may be unnecessary, but I used a wooden skewer to make the bottom of that trench just a little bit wider, so there's more room for the rod to move in. Here's an old bit of wire I had lying around the garage. It's not perfectly straight, it's not amazingly strong, but it should be good enough for what I need. If you want to use something more industrial, be my guest. And by wrapping the wire around my pliers, I can create a small loop. And this is going to attach to the end of the bar on the points. A couple of 90-degree bends make sure that the wire sits down in the bottom of that trench out of the way. And once in place, I can tighten the loop around the plastic knob and test that it all works. Hooray! A finishing touch is to bend the end of the wire into a handle of sorts. I'm pretty pleased with that. Simple but effective point control with no electric tomfoolery required. Now on to the next point, which is going to be a lot more of a challenge. This one isn't right next to the side of the layout, so my wire rod will have to find its way underneath this track here. The basic approach will be the same, except that instead of using a trench, I'm going to have to burrow through the baseboard material without disturbing the track above it. I'll start by cutting out a section next to the point to make it easier to work in. I'll keep hold of that piece though, as I'll be able to reuse it later. Next, I needed to push the wire through and hope it comes out in the hole I just created. And I won't lie, this wasn't easy. I started by using that wooden skewer, but that didn't go well. So I just pushed the wire through, but the wire went any which way it wanted, and it took many attempts. Many attempts. But I got there in the end. And then it was just a case of bending the end of the wire into the same shape as before, with a loop and two 90-degree bends, fitting that over the point and tightening it. That seems to work nicely, so now we need to hide what we've done. I cut the bottom off that piece of ground I took out earlier so that it doesn't rub against the wire, And after test fitting it, I applied a little PVA glue around the sides and slotted it back in. A handle is the finishing touch, and we're done. The final point over here was pretty much the same, just even harder because it was even further from the edge of the board, but the process was basically the same. So, a couple of hours of tinkering and I've managed to install manual remote point control on all the points around my station. And this now means I can change the points without my hands having to reach over the layout, risking knocking scenery in the process. And yes, that's the voice of experience there. One final touch was to disguise everything I've just done so that you can't see it. The wire loops were painted black, and in some places extra bushes and such like were placed over the areas I cut into, so that you'd never know it was there. I've also done the 3 points at the other end of the layout using the same technique. Well, that's all for this update. I hope you found that interesting. If you've been inspired to do something like this on your own layout, or if you want to suggest a different way of doing it, feel free to let me know in the comments. But that's all from me for now, so I'll see you next time.